Welcome to Green Time. I'm host Don Fitz. This episode we're going to be talking about green handcuffs. I have a couple of people who have been very involved with issues concerning marijuana. I have LeShea Agnew, who is an NPR affiliate reporter. Do I have that right, LeShea?
Yes.
Okay. And I also have Justin Meehan, who is an attorney at law. Now, LeShea, tell me, why are we calling this show Green Handcuffs?
Well, I wrote an op-ed about my experience in the St. Louis American, and I thought the perfect title would be Green Handcuffs. It seems as if some members of law enforcement, some members of judicial municipalities are aiming for certain individuals, certain citizens. And to coin it, Green Handcuffs lets us all know what the target is. Who has cannabis, who uses cannabis. Those are the most easy people to go after, to arrest, because I fell in that exact same trap.
Okay, so the green refers to cannabis,
yes,
and how people are being arrested. Now, are there ethnic differences in the arrest rate for cannabis?
Oh, of course. I didn't know this until after my arrest, but I believe Justin has all the statistics, but it's something like 7 times more likely to be stopped.
In Illinois.
In Illinois, stopped, searched,
Justin,
if you're a minority, right?
Black people are arrested, are stopped in the cars at 7 times higher rate than white cars.
Yeah, Don. And I want to point out that these statistics that I'm throwing around are not my personal opinion. These are statistics that are provided to the FBI. They're provided to the Department of Transportation. We know for a fact that in the United States of America, we know for a fact that marijuana use is equal among the races. And yet, in the United States of America, a person of color is 4 times more likely to be pulled over, stopped, to be pulled over, to be searched, and then charged with minor marijuana offenses. Illinois is the highest. And, you know, an interesting thing, Chicago police have the highest number of minor marijuana arrests in the country, and they have the lowest arrest for manufacturing distribution. They're just shooting fish in the barrel. This is just a way to create an underclass. This is why Ferguson exists. And green handcuffs is actually call it black handcuffs. But there's no question that law enforcement self-reporting demonstrate over and over again that a black person is going to get stopped more than a white person. They're going to get searched more. They're going to get charged more, even though the relative use is the same.
I just want to mention, go back to what you said about Ferguson. I think that a lot of the issue that came up about Ferguson is that a lot of whites don't have a clue of why there's so much resentment in the black community towards police. LeShea, do you have any idea why there might be that different perception of the police?
Well, I certainly won't speak for everyone, but from my experience as a reporter, as you mentioned, NPR, for 10 years, that's what I did. I uncovered these stories. I gave voice to the voiceless, and I had no idea that it was such a problem until it happened to me. Never in my life had I experienced anything like it.
There's a lot of black people who have this experience like what you had.
I have to assume, based on my experience, that we are targeted because of how it unfolded, and I'd be happy to go into detail about that.
Go ahead, tell us what happened.
Well, it happened in April of 2014. I was in Belleville, Illinois on West Main Street. It was lunchtime, middle of the afternoon, heading to grab some lunch with family and friends, and I get pulled over. I'm thinking maybe it's an out tail light or something, but as soon as they walk up to the car, 2 of the officers, they were in an unmarked car, and they just had guns dripping off of them on their hips, on their thighs, in their holsters, and they walked up to the car with this assertive look as if they're going to find something. And they immediately asked me, "Where are you headed? Because you are in a high drug traffic area, and we know something's in this car." That was the first thing.
The police actually said, "We know something."
Very first thing, when I rolled down the window, it wasn't a, "Hey ma'am, how you doing?"
That's amazing.
It was "You're in a high drug traffic area. Go ahead and tell us what's in the car." That was it.
I mean, I've gone to Belleville multiple times, and I've never been pulled over. Nobody would ever say, has ever said to me, we know you have.
We know you have something.
So what happened then?
So I tell them, well, my face tells them the confusion that's happening in my mind, and I said, well, there's nothing in my car. What do you mean? And they say, well, let's stop the riffraff. Let's cut out the middleman. We're not new to this. We know something's in the car. We know. Within seconds, I'm pulled out of the car despite me saying there's nothing in it. And I was searched by both, the first officer that came to the car, I was searched by him. He bent me over the front of the patrol car in front of everyone that's passing by and searched me thoroughly, a male officer. He found nothing. They pulled me to the side on the curb and then they started on my car. They never asked for permission.
They never asked for permission?
Never. I had no idea what was going on.
Did you find anything offensive about the search?
Of course. The first thing out of your mouth is that I'm in a high drug traffic area and I could see my house. I was pulled within 2 blocks of my home. So that was alarming. That was alarming that you would pick that as the reason for the stop. And they started searching the car. And
well, they also attempted to say the reason for the stop was she had 2 license plates. The front one had fallen off. She had it in her trunk. And it was 2 in the afternoon. You didn't have your lights on. That's where the 2 traffic tickets they gave her to try to justify this.
That was what was on the police report.
But it was because you were black and you had...
And my hair is different, and I'm new to town. I just moved from New York, so I was definitely new, and I stood out.
And so you actually were cited for having your headlights off?
They said that I was driving in the rain with no windshield wipers and no headlights on, which was incorrect. That would impair my own visibility. I wouldn't take such a risk driving with no lights or windshield wipers. But
was it raining then?
Barely. It wasn't raining until they were actually searching my car, and I had to put my hood over my head because I was standing outside. So,
light drizzles,
of course. But again, when they came to the car, there was no mention of why are your lights not on, why are your windshield wipers not going, because it was a drug stop. They were looking for drugs.
And when we attempted to obtain the dash cam videos, they had been conveniently destroyed.
Oh, really? They did not have that sort of issue. Makes me always wonder about demanding body cameras, demanding cameras, because I always think that things are going to be
shooting fish in a barrel, and the easiest thing to do is pull a black person over.
Right. Okay. Well, let's take a break after looking at a movie of what has happened to other women, and then we'll come back to finish our discussion.
Thanks, Don.
The NORML Women's Alliance has also been very successful in raising awareness for the devastating effects of marijuana prohibition on mothers and parental custody. The Alliance has been very active in bringing attention to this issue and especially raising awareness for one high-profile case in Butte County, California. On the morning of September 29, 2011, the Butte Interagency Narcotic Task Force, or BINTF, forced entry into the home of Daisy Brame and her husband, Jamie Walsh. Law enforcement officers arrested the couple and, working jointly with Child Protective Services, seized the children, including their 3-week-old suckling newborn Zeus. The following is an actual recording of that raid.
You got her? Daisy, what you're under arrest for is cultivation of marijuana and possession of marijuana for sale.
She don't cultivate. She ain't got nothing. She got a MRSA and a cut on her hand, dude.
Okay, another charge is child endangerment on yours. I forgot that. You have the 3.
Who's he gonna eat? He has to eat now. He's a newborn.
Are you kidding?
Give me my baby!
Daisy, listen.
What is he gonna eat? They're gonna give him formula!
The outrage over this incident drove several local residents to come forward with similar complaints regarding the misconduct of the BINTF and the county's Child Services Division. As a result, the NORML Women's Alliance moved to file an official request for an investigation of the county's Children's Services Division by the grand jury in Butte County. The Women of NORML also brought significant media attention to this case through a sustained online media campaign. We were able to further raise awareness for the damaging effects of prohibition on mothers and families by taking part in a 2012 Mother's Day Cops and Moms Week of Action. We teamed up with other drug reform organizations such as Law Enforcement Against Prohibition and Students for Sensible Drug Policy to coordinate press conferences and media awareness in cities across the country. Another notable component of the Female Outreach Program has been a focus on building support for women, both activists within the movement and victims of marijuana prohibition. To help lend support to female victims, the NORML Women's Alliance developed a campaign to encourage individuals to write women serving time in prison for marijuana-related charges. We originally encouraged supporters to write to Patricia Spotted Crow, a first-time offender from Oklahoma who was sentenced to 10 years behind bars for selling $30 worth of marijuana. The NWA was part of a strong grassroots effort spearheaded by outraged mothers and reformers who launched several targeted campaigns to local law enforcement and elected officials. She has since been released after serving less than 2 years of her sentence, but was able to draw strength from the support that was provided to her while serving time. After this first round of letter writing, with the help of Families Against Mandatory Minimums, we compiled a database of women in federal prisons who were serving time for marijuana-related charges. Over the next several months, community leaders across the country organized several letter writing events to lend comfort and support to our sisters behind bars. To help strengthen and unite the women in the movement, the Alliance partnered with Students for Sensible Drug Policy to form a new mentoring project called Sister to Sister. This project was designed to connect women in the marijuana movement with each other in order to facilitate a close-knit community of female drug law reform activists. This project has given female activists the opportunity to build strong professional and personal relationships between women of all demographics who wouldn't have otherwise been introduced to one another. We have since matched over 500 women who become more active in the movement. In 2012, the NORML Women's Alliance was the recipient of the David Borden Friend of SSDP Award in recognition of our collaboration on the Sister to Sister project. Sister to Sister has provided members the ability to share skills, information, and resources that will help female reformers become more engaged and more effective as they work towards our common interests.
Welcome back to Green Time. I'm host Don Fitz. We're talking about Green Handcuffs. With me, I have a couple of people who are very familiar with marijuana harassment by the police for marijuana.
Persecution.
Persecution. I have Justin Meehan, who's an attorney at law, and I have LeShea Agnew, who is a NPR reporter affiliate. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, LeShea, before the break, you were telling us how you were pulled over for basically doing nothing in
Right.
Belleville. And did anything happen that you could be called sexual harassment?
The fact that I was searched on the scene as if they were trying to catch it on my person, since I was clearly saying, no, there's nothing in the vehicle or on my person, to be searched by a male officer. I know that there's an option that exists that sometimes they will call a female officer to the scene, but they just bypass any sorts of comfort for the person who has not even yet faced a charge. At this point, you're just acting under suspicion. But the fact that you bend me over a patrol unit when I've had nothing more than a speeding ticket in my entire life, 10 years with NPR, all the people I've interviewed, all the things that I've done, I still was the face of criminal activity despite what I said. To be searched by a male officer for the first time in my life, I can't explain or put that into words, because not only did it happen, but it happened publicly. I was
in front of cars driving
We're
by.
on a main street, so all the cars that most people slow down when they come to any type of police activity. So they're slowing down and they're looking, and most of them are my neighbors. We live on the same street. So yes, that could definitely be considered a form of sexual harassment when nothing was found on my person.
Right, and I worked at State Hospital for 25 years, and we had very strict rules about touching somebody, and that you could be fired, and people were fired for inappropriate touching. But apparently this doesn't apply to police, even though
Not
they
at all.
if they really needed a body search, they easily could have had a female officer come. Or did you end up going to jail? Or?
I did. They showed me nothing. They never said what they found. I was just put in the back of the patrol car. When I asked them over and over, they said, don't worry, the dash cam caught everything. So when I was lucky enough to get Justin to represent me, that was why we reached out for the dash cam, but they had destroyed it at that point. When I was taken to jail, I was not placed in a holding cell. I was placed in an actual cell by myself in the dark. I was harassed over my sexuality, over my appearance, over anything you could think of, especially my race, for the 4 to 6 hours that I was in there. I didn't know what it was until I got out. When I got out, it was a misdemeanor offense. They found something less than a joint in a bag that was in the car, but was not specifically my property.
Okay, and so, but they never had permission to search the car?
Not once, nor did they ask. They searched the vehicle 3 times before they arrested me, which is why I thought I was going home, because they produced nothing.
Now, well, let me ask you this. What happened to your personal belongings?
Oh, everything was taken out, was dumped throughout the car. I mean, they literally combed the car over 3 times from the inside to the trunk. So every personal item that I had, paperwork that I had, I just moved, all the paperwork that I needed, everything was just in the car like a tornado had gone through it.
Now, did this have any effect on your work?
Oh, of course, of course.
Now, you write professionally. That's what you do. Is that correct?
I was a reporter, a host, and a producer for NPR in North Carolina and in New York.
So was having your papers in order, was that important to your job?
I was actually job hunting. I was in negotiations for 2 offers, and as soon as they sent me through for a background check, I was flagged. It was pending drug charge. That's all that pops up. And in this business, we don't really ask questions. We just assume there's something going on, and we'll give you time to handle that. But I lost 2 jobs, 2 employment opportunities, in addition to having to come up with $1,300 to get myself out of jail, get my car back, and to kind of put everything back to where it was before this happened.
$1,300. So there's a whole lot of people who would find it difficult to impossible to come up with
And I'm one of those people. I was not working at the time. I was living off savings, taking a little break before I joined my next news post. And that wasn't a burden that just fell on me. It fell on whoever, when you're arrested, it falls on the family. It falls on whoever is in a relationship with you. So I had to pull from friends to family to loved ones to have them come up with the funds to help me fight this.
And if you just moved to St. Louis, you would have been and not had family here, you might have been in jail for a long time.
You know, I'd hate to think about it, but
the other thing is, they tried to get her to plead guilty by offering her just the minimal of this, the minimal of that, but she refused. And the thing that people don't understand is that while the easy way out may be to plead guilty to a reduced crime, you still have an arrest. A marijuana arrest can prevent a person from getting federal funding for education, for living expenses. There's so many negative collateral consequences from working with children, from working with seniors. This is why it's kind of like a brand that they put on slaves to keep people from doing what they want to do, which is go to school, get a job, have a family. But with this scarlet arrest, you are automatically excluded from many jobs, from many educational opportunities, and even from federal housing.
So the collateral damages that we could call these for a marijuana arrest, it's not just like you're arrested for marijuana, you're given a ticket, and it's all over, and you pay a $50 fine. It's something that could follow you for years and years and years and affect many different areas of your life.
Exactly.
Okay, now tell me this, LeShea, most people who watch television are now familiar with the Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Everything you say will be held against you. Now, what was happening when they first read you your Miranda rights?
I'd never heard them. They never said them. They didn't say a part of it, a sentence, nothing. It literally was, turn around, put your hands behind your back.
And did they ever even ask you whether the marijuana in the little thing was yours?
I never even saw what it was. They never even displayed it. They never asked. Like I said, until I got out, I had no idea why I was even in there.
Okay, and so why would police officers want to charge people for things like marijuana instead of felonies? You know, what is there any advantage to doing that?
There is a kind of an advantage in that if a person had a felony amount, they could get into a drug court and walk out without a record. We don't have what we need, which is alternative sentencing, which precludes criminal convictions and cases are dismissed, or expungements. I believe that it's a badge of slavery, continually handcuffed to minorities to keep them in their place. And it's particularly prevalent in places like Belleville, St. Clair County, and St. Charles, and even St. Louis County. And yet you go from municipality, if it's your first offense in Maryland Heights, is automatically a littering. You go to St. Charles, and it's a criminal offense.
You mentioned expungement.
Yeah.
Well, what does the word expungement mean?
And a person could make a mistake, a person could make a mistake. Let's say 20 years ago, they had a joint on them. They've lived a good life, they've worked, they have a family, and now they want to go back and erase that. You can do it if you're applying. It was actually the gun lobby that got some expungement going, because they all wanted their guns. So it's okay if you passed a bad check. But minor marijuana, which our president has already said is equivalent to alcohol or tobacco at worst, still remains a means of suppressing people's opportunities in the future, and it's creating Ferguson's, is what is happening.
Right. And what we just talked about in terms of LeShea's experience, really shows
Thank God that she was willing to say, I'm not taking anything, I'm going to trial.
Okay, LeShea, let me just ask you to project a little bit. Do you think that young people in Ferguson, prior to the death of Michael Brown, might have felt that they were being discriminated against for laws like marijuana?
When I first came to this area, that was the underlying current in a lot of conversations, that they felt bias policing was not just a problem, but one that has continued for decades.
And they said there were 7 warrants for every resident in Ferguson.
Okay. Wow. We're going to take another break, and we will be back in just a couple of minutes for the final wrap-up of the show.
There was one question that was voted on that ranked fairly high, and that was whether legalizing marijuana would improve the economy and job creation. And I don't know what this says about the online audience, but
over a guy in a walker. Live on it.
Welcome back to Green Time. I'm host Don Fitz. This is not really Justin Meehan with us, and we swapped him out for John Payne with Show Me Cannabis, and we have LeShea Agnew, who is an NPR affiliate reporter. Now, John, if people want to find information out about racism in marijuana laws and application of the laws, where could they look to do that?
Well, they can go to our website. They can go to showmecannabis.com, and we discuss that on our website. And we also have LeShea's story posted up there. And then they can also go to the ACLU's website, which is just aclu.org. And they did an excellent report a couple years ago on the, it's called Marijuana in Black and White, on the enforcement of the disproportionate arrest numbers for blacks over whites when it comes to marijuana in this country.
Now, was there anything, Justin Meehan said a whole lot about criminal law. Is there anything that you wanted to mention in just a few seconds?
I would just say that, it's these laws are morally bankrupt regardless of who's being arrested, but they've always been based in racism. That's something that...
It's not new.
No, not at all. This goes back all the way back to the 30s. That's what it's always been about.
Let me ask you, what happened when you went to court? How'd the police testify against you?
They didn't show up. 10 minutes before trial, they gave us a call and said, we throw in the towel. Justin submitted a 300-page defense. It was wonderful.
You got about 15 seconds left, so tell me what's happened to you since then.
So it was dismissed, but because of that, now I'm moving more into an advocacy position to put a face to this so-called drug war, which is nothing more than a dragnet that's catching many innocent citizens such as myself in it and disrupting and changing and stopping our lives.
LeShea, I want to thank you very much for showing up. John, I want to thank you very much. I want to thank Justin, who's no longer on the set, and I want to thank everybody and urge you to tune in to Green Time the same time next week.